1. Alright, a couple of things before I start this story. This all happened a long time ago, and as far as I know, have long since been settled. So years ago, I used to be a delivery guy for a sandwich place that rhymes with Timmy Tom's. The shop used to be located right next to a coffee shop drive-thru though, so pulling out of the parking lot used to be an absolute nightmare. One day, while I was trying to pull out for a delivery, this woman gets into her car next to me. She starts her car, and while I'm slowly pulling out at a snail's pace, she instantly pulls out behind me. I was still backing up, and because she pulled out so fast behind my already moving vehicle, I gently bump her car. This causes a slight bump and a scratch on her car no bigger than a dime. Now, most people wouldn't even care and would just shrug it off or something. Not Karen, no, she goes ballistic. She starts screaming at me, demanding I get her husband to calm her down. Her husband is apparently in the coffee shop, so I do. Kevin comes out, looks at the damage, and starts laying into me with his wife. I was young at the time, so I was pretty new to these sorts of things, and at that point I hadn't realized that this was the car that was originally parked next to me. I thought I had somehow accidentally backed into someone and hadn't realized that they pulled out behind me. I head into the shop and tell the manager what's going on. He tells me he knows and saw everything. I breathe a sigh of relief, thinking it's all gonna be over and cleared up soon. Karen and Kevin call the police, and the officer starts by letting us know he can't assign blame for an accident since it happened on private property. The officer asks Karen and Kevin what happened. Kevin tells them, and the officer leaves. Yep, doesn't even talk to me and my manager, he just leaves. However, I have my manager fill out a statement to my insurance over the phone and hope for the best. Sadly, this didn't do anything to help the case. The entitled couple have calmed down and seem genuinely happy. They actually exchange pleasantries with me. They wish me well and leave. My manager advises me that if their insurance calls me, to tell their insurance person to only contact me through my insurance person, and I do exactly that. I get a call. I parrot what my manager says, give them the number, and they hang up. This is where the true horror story begins. Throughout the next month, Kevin starts to show up at my work almost every day, but only when I'm not around. He screams at my coworkers, managers, and tells anyone who will listen that I'm insurance dodging, somehow. And when I'm at work, he just glares at me through the windows, standing there watching me. After a while, the dude starts to follow me on deliveries. This goes on every single day for a whole ass month. We threaten to call the police, he threatens to sue, but he always leaves. I'm wondering where the hell this guy gets the time for this, and I learn from the next door coffee shop people that he practically lives there in their building. Turns out Kevin's a cheapskate. He doesn't have internet at home, and he needs it for his job. Kevin has his own company, being some sort of graphic designer or something like that. Since the coffee shop has free Wi-Fi, he goes there every day, yells at them to turn the music down, buys one extra small cup of coffee, and leaves at closing time. The coffee shop peeps actually have a pencil mark on the dial, so they can turn it down when he walks in so they can avoid his daily temper tantrums. After weeks of this guy harassing me, my insurance calls me. They explain some things to me, and I tell them what's going on. They tell me they'll handle it. The insurance agent also asked me something strange, if I'd seen Karen at all. I hadn't, but I was compelled to ask why. The insurance tells me some of the Karen couple's claims. They were claiming that the accident had caused whiplash, that she was having PTSD from the accident, that she was too hurt to walk. She could barely move, stress from me trying to insurance dodge. And there was so much more. However, obviously they couldn't back this up because they hadn't gone to the doctors or anything. They had asked if I had seen Karen because they were having trouble getting a hold of her, since her husband was only speaking for her since she had all these injuries. So, sadly, because of the BS police report, they had to rule in the Karen couple's favor. However, they weren't getting all that much from this, just a new coat of paint for their car. The insurance agent made Kevin put Karen on the line and made it very clear that if they didn't leave me alone, this would go to court, so thankfully they finally left me alone. Some slight bit of good news is that I found out Karen had been placed on a watch list by the insurance company, since this was the 6th time that year that something like this had happened to them. They had also tried to sue the company I was working for since I had my car topper on, but that didn't go anywhere, thankfully. 2. Some years ago, my wife and I organized a holiday assistance program for our church. In October, families register for the Thanksgiving and Christmas giveaways. Usually the Monday before Thanksgiving is when we distribute the Thanksgiving dinner. This included a turkey breast or turkey, and all that was needed to make a Thanksgiving dinner. Amount of food was dependent upon family size. So the breakdown was something like this. 1 to 2 people, turkey breast with all the rest. These were 4 or 5 pounds of just turkey meat. 3 to 4 people, 10 to 12 pounds of turkey with all the rest. 5 to 6 people, 12 to 15 pound turkey with all the rest. You get the idea. So distribution day arrives and things are going well, as we are going to move about 500 families through in 4 hours. I act as the gatekeeper. No one in the building without their appointment card and ID. Once in, they sign in with my wife and we bring all they need as they walk down and head out another door. Somewhere in the middle of this time, my wife comes out to get me as we have a person who is not happy. I go in and there is Karen. She eyeballs me hard in disbelief. I'm not in uniform like normal. The conversation goes something like this. What seems to be the problem? I'm here to pick up the dinner for me and my husband, and this lady won't give us a turkey. Note that she sort of sneered the word lady. Also, my wife is Hispanic and does have a small accent when she speaks, which most ignorant people assume she is not in charge or intelligent. Rather than argue, she usually just grabs me. Ma'am, we are giving you a turkey. It's the turkey breast, which has more than enough meat for you and your husband. Further, we allocate the turkeys based on family size, and we simply do not have any extra to give you. This isn't good enough. We need a turkey. Note, she isn't yelling, but all eyes are definitely on us. Also, she is holding the box we gave her with everything. I'm sorry, ma'am. Let me take back what you have and I'll see what I can do. I take back the box and hand it off to one of the staff and then turn back around. Okay, ma'am, again, I'm sorry we weren't able to accommodate your wishes today. The exit is this way and you have a happy Thanksgiving. Wait, what? You expressed that this meal wasn't good enough for you, and I would never impose upon anyone something they consider to be substandard. So again, the exit is this way and have a nice day. I walked her to the exit door, and as I walked back through the line to the entrance, I asked, "Is there anyone else with an issue they need addressing?" A few audible nopes and a few chuckles were heard, but that was that. I will point out at Christmas time she was able to receive what she signed up for with no complaints, so I'm glad she picked up on that. We were able to help around 500 families for each holiday, and our volunteers loved it. Entitled people bother me no end, but she was one person in all of that, so it was definitely a success and worth it. 3. I'm an assistant teacher at a martial arts school. I've been working non-profit as a teacher, and I've been certified in teaching at the school for 5 years now. I've seen all sorts of people from all sorts of backgrounds, but I've never had an encounter like the one I had with an insane Karen last year. Our summers are busy, lots of students of all ages training to compete at national level. We get more than our fair share of irresponsible and narcissistic parents dumping their demon children on us. But what I can easily say is the worst kind of person to teach are the kind who think they know what they're doing. She had been attending classes for about a week, and she was already unhinged, refusing to take instruction, ignoring other students, blaming us teachers for going too hard for her. We were doing the stuff toddlers can do, being weirdly evangelical and downright disrespecting and insulting other students and instructors. I remember her primary excuses as to why she wouldn't take instruction was, "You're smaller than me, maybe you'd need to know this, but I'm stronger than that, and I'm older than you should be listening to me." And my personal favorite, "Only Jesus can tell me what to do." Karen was not a small woman, easily 6 feet and 200 plus pounds. She did all she could to rough up any of her fellow students. She would go for the face, punch the elbow belt, and even throw her weight on people much smaller than her. Finally, I was able to watch this in person. I watched as she shoulder-checked a teenage girl without waiting for the round to begin. The girl had the wind knocked out of her, and she was crying and struggling not to throw up. I intervened. "Ma'am, that wasn't okay. You didn't wait for the signal, and you chose a partner outside of your age group." "I thought we were supposed to fight like we mean it." "That's true, but you still need to treat your partner like a partner, not an enemy." "You're not the boss of me, little boy." I'm 22, and I was in full uniform with my black belt on, and easily noticed a patch that said, "Instructor," on the front that was sewn onto my shirt. "Ma'am, if you want to continue training with us, you'll need to respect the limitations and restrictions we've placed to protect you and our students." "Well, it's not my fault I'm better than everyone here. I guess God chose me to be the best." "Okay, ma'am, I'll be your partner this time, no holds barred. Show me what you can do." She rolled her eyes and got to her spot. Before the signal, she burmished me. After I dodged it, I gave her a warning punch that barely grazed her. She went off like a firebomb, began yelling profanities and slurs, trying to grab my hair, spitting on me, and throwing wild haymakers. She should have paid attention in class. Eventually, I started hitting back. I started soft, but she refused to let up. For reference, I'm 5'6" and 140 pounds on a good day. I was not doing much, but she still screamed like an insane person. She eventually started going for the face again, even using her fingernails like a cat. I gave her one good shot to the stomach, and then when she finally got her hands on me, she tried to choke me by grabbing my neck. I had enough. I sidestepped and landed a spinning heel kick that landed right above her jaw, and she went limp and keeled over. When she came to, she tried coming at me again. Thankfully, 3 bigger guys stepped in and stopped the raging hippo. She was kicked out of the school that day. She later tried to sue the school, but her court visit had her laughed out of the room, and she ended up paying us $4,000 in damages and 60 hours of community service. The judge ruled that because she had signed a waiver, she couldn't hold the school responsible and she had no real case. To this day, that spin kick knockout was the most satisfying lesson I have ever taught. Fuck you, Karen. I hope you enjoyed the hospital bill. 4. Key things to know. 1. My dog greets dogs poorly because she gets super excited and looks mean, while she play bows and pulls to greet. We have been working on such. I take her to the park to exercise, not play with other dogs. Other dogs are a bonus. Her typical playmate wasn't out today. Elijah wears a head harness because she pulls and never got the hang of a vest or collar only. We're slowly switching to collar only since she thinks collar equals I get to do whatever. We're working on this too. I don't let my dog fence fight because it's poor behavior and should never be let happen. If the dogs are to play, they're not to play through the fence, period. It's abusive to let dogs bite each other through a fence since it inhibits behavior and communication between dogs, leading to actual fighting later on. There's houses with dogs all around the dog park, which is also located next to an elementary school. So let's get started. I walk to the dog park and get there first. I saw this older lady between 50s and 70s. Alright, in my head I was thinking she's probably nice. Doesn't appear we will be in the same area of the park, so it should be fine, right? I stop like I normally do and Karen starts yelling while I give my dog pre-playtime water, like I always do, especially on hot days. And she goes off. "You're abusing that dog. You don't deserve a dog." I ignore her since I was telling Lycha no and body blocking her while locking the leash short. She was trying to play with the other dog, but couldn't understand that I said no at that time. The Karen continues. "How can she even drink with that on? It's abuse. I train dogs and therapy dogs and service dogs. You're abusing your dog." I responded, "Love, ma'am. All we can do is love. Despise, you're abusive to your dog while you let them pull you places." I said and hoped she would eventually back off and let her pull her dog to the dog park. The Karen continues, "How am I abusive? You didn't pull at all." She had no control over her dog. She continues, "I bet you can't even have your dog off leash." I responded, "Yeah, I can." I unclipped Elijah, to which she was very well behaved and stayed right by me. Her dog was yards from her after sniffing my dog and did not respond to her saying, "Come." I entered the dog park after Elijah was done drinking, which she didn't get enough because of the lady's distractions. But she was okay to play. Nonetheless, Elijah was scared of this lady. I never yelled at Elijah, and Elijah seeing someone act like that had her showing whale eye, which I only kept her there because I knew one slap would knock that granny out, assuming she decided to throw hands. She was very aggressive in all this, so I wasn't afraid of her until later in this situation. The Karen mocked me when I called out in a tune, "Away from the fence," and I clapped 3 times. This is because the tuning clapping tells my dog that it's me giving the command and I'm serious. And the lady, yet again, after I did it 3 times, she did it 3 times too. Her exact words were, "Away from the fence, blah 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 blah. I watch and hear you do that every time you're here." That scared me. The fact that this lady thinks she can tell me what to do and harass me because she stalks me from her home. I had called the cops before I entered the park, and she left before they got there, and she pretended to comfort her dog, which really didn't want such, and didn't give a dog's butt about anything that happened. I called her a psycho bitch and attempted to get her away, but nothing happened of it, unfortunately. Sadly, the cops never came by, and I'm pretty positive she's the lady with the 2 dogs that constantly bark at dog park dogs. One with a deeper bark, one with a yapper bark. Needless to say, after this, it was hard to slow my heart. I have PTSD, and yelling is a trigger for it, as well as some types of confrontation. My dog Elijah left after 20 or 30 minutes there, and instead we took a longer route for proper exercise today. 5. Long story short, before we get to the longer story, I made an Am I the Asshole post on Reddit a few years ago about how whenever attending family functions, someone would always steal my seat if I got up, so it got so bad I eventually started taking my own seat with me, a folding chair that I could pick up and take with me. As if I didn't do that, no matter where I sat, they'd always get mad at me when I came back and asked for my seat back. A little while later at a family party, my brother-in-law thought it would be funny to hide my chair. Eventually I got it back, however, at that point, whatever he'd done with it, it was damaged to the point it was no longer usable. He refused to pay for it because, of course, and none of the family took my upset seriously, acting like I was the problem. This is the story of what happened after. Things escalated a lot after I made that post because I linked it to my parents and other family members after a little while. They were furious with me, at first. Some even mocked me, saying things like, "Oh, what would you say or do around OP? He might just post about it on Reddit." But when they actually did read the comments on my posts when I made them, they became mortified. My brother-in-law did agree to pay for a new chair and gave me the money I asked for. I bought a better folding chair than my last one and resumed going to family functions. But whenever I was there was this air about some of the family members. They looked at me like I'd sucked all the fun out of the room. My parents had stopped thinking the chair thing was funny, and even scolded a kid for taking my seat when I got up to use the bathroom. The only problem is that this kid was my nephew, and he started crying when they made him get up. My brother-in-law came to the boy's rescue, and my nephew ended up blurting out that his daddy told him he could do it. When I got out of the bathroom, there was a big fight about it going on. Several family members, including my sister and brother-in-law, were yelling that it was just a damn chair and that I shouldn't be so butthurt about it. My parents demanded to know why they were so butthurt about not being able to screw with me anymore. Like, what was their motivation after doing it for so long? It made no sense and wasn't funny anymore. And that's when I intervened. I told them none of this crap would ever have happened if they hadn't been so intent on messing with me when there was really no point to it. And I only started to bring my own chair because I could never find a stable place to sit. And if they still thought they were right about the situation, then they were just bullies, plain and simple. And what kind of example is that to be setting to their son? My brother-in-law raged, grabbed my new chair, hurled it through the living room bay window. There was a bit of a pause before he realized what he'd just done. Then he took off in his car and left my sister and nephew there. My parents got my sister to call him. Over the phone, they threatened to go to the police if he didn't pay for the damages. Brother-in-law yelled a few F-bombs until my sister took the phone back. And she said that he can either make things right or she'll divorce him. Well, that did the trick because he came back looking like a kicked puppy, with his head hanging low. He apologized to me and my parents without even looking at us, said he'd pay for the new bay window and left again. My sister said he drank himself to sleep that night. My new chair was just fine. It took being hurled through a bay window like a champ. There was hardly a scratch on it. My brother hired a window company to come replace the window, and they had to measure and order a new one before it could be installed, and until the new window had to be covered with plywood. It took some time, but they got the new bay window, and it's better than the old one. Though I imagine that it was extra expensive because it's a bay window. The family was still divided about the situation for a while, mainly my brother-in-law's parents, my uncle, and a couple of cousins. They blamed me and called me obnoxious over insisting on bringing my own chair and refusing to let anyone else use it. So I compromised. I said that if I had a good designated seat that no one will try to take away, I'll leave my chair in my car. It took 2 more family barbecues before they finally agreed to this. Since then, I've left the chair in my car unless there really wasn't enough seating, and that's only happened once since. The problem is, though, that even though they stopped screwing with me, they were still screwing with each other until things went too far. They still like to take each other's seats, but I guess others were following my example because they put their feet down and demanded it stop. It's been going on for decades, and they've had enough. Brother-in-law stayed out of the fight entirely and hasn't caused any more trouble. But for several family functions, a number of people didn't bother to show up. My mother was broken up about it because she loves hosting parties. It took months, but everything more or less normalized again. But without the chair thing going on, some have resorted to other stupid pranks. Like a little device you hook to a chair that makes farts. They didn't do this to my seat, but did it to a cousin, and said cousin got really petty at the next party and let out real farts. He said he ate a whole pack of fiber bars and had eggs for breakfast, and it was damn nasty. Other pranks included hiding eating utensils, a stink bomb, hiding some sort of monster thing in the toilet, cellophane in the doorway, ripping paper when somebody bends over, messing with drinks, hiding shoes, copying outfits, a container of foam packing peanuts above a doorway, and finally the one that really infuriated my aunt and uncle when a party was held at their house, a glitter bomb. They got the carpet professionally cleaned and billed the person who made the glitter bomb for it. So now pranks are just over. They don't want any more. I'm fine with that. But the last few family functions have been a bit dull. I think they were so used to how things were that now they're trying to find other ways to amuse themselves that don't involve cell phones. For anyone wondering, the chair is a National Public Seating steel folding chair. I bought it online for around $80. It's got a thick foam vinyl covered pad on the seat, and it's pretty comfortable. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to Idiots in the Wild, episode 721. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. Before you go, please hit the like button. Thank you very much. Right, let's see. I think this is... Oh, it's Wednesday. My days are so muddled up right now. I thought it was Tuesday there. Right, there are no birthday shoutouts as far as I know today. I think the next one's in August. So let's go straight to Hellfreezer's question of the day. And today's question is... Does anybody remember those big inflatable chairs that were a thing? The early 2000s, I think they were. Does anyone still have one, and do you still use it? Or is there any item of furniture, Well, let's go with furniture or household gadgets or anything that were really popular for some reason at one point, but now we look back and we're not even sure why. I do remember I used that big inflatable chair, but it really wasn't the most comfortable thing in the world, was it? Bean bags were popular when I was a kid. I do remember those. This was back in the 1980s. Okay, let me know what you think. Get the nostalgia flowing. Let me know what you think in a comment below. Okay, and with that, I'm going to head off for now. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourself.